Hello and welcome to Politically Incorrect Knitters. My name's Ann Pinkva. I'm joined as always by the lovely deplorable knitter. And today my little cup of joy overflows because I am sitting with the two most hated women in knitting. And I am chuffed beyond belief. I'm so pleased to be invited to this party because not only deplorable knitter, but the beautiful, the lovely, the infamous Maria Tusken.
Yay! Yes, we're very excited. We have Maria today, and yeah, everything happened to Maria around the same time that I got my first taste of the hate speech. So I was very aware of what was going on with her because it happened at the same time that my Build the Wall hat was released, and so I was getting a lot of stuff going on. And then I was like, it opened my eyes to everything that was happening in the knitting community. So I think, first off, I think a lot of people already know what happened to you. Can you give us like the Cliff's Notes version for people who maybe don't know?
Yeah. So in January 2019, Karen Templer wrote her India blog post, and then I saw everyone online like attacking her, going after her, and I just could not believe that no one was defending her. Like no one was actually saying anything, and they started going after other knitters too. And I was like behind the scenes texting people like, what in the world is going on? This is crazy. And people agreed with me, but they were all like too scared to say anything. Like just saying, oh my God, like I have a business, what's gonna happen if I say something? And I remember just one night, like I was putting wood on the fire. Like I remember this moment, and I just realized like I have to say something. Like there's no question in my mind. My business might be destroyed. They're gonna go after me, but I had to do something. I didn't know how bad it was gonna be. You don't know how bad it's gonna be until they come for you. But yeah, I left Instagram and I put up a Instagram post saying I was leaving, and I said it was just a toxic community and I needed a break. And then about a week later, I recorded a YouTube video kind of going into more detail, even though I still like left out names and stuff because I didn't want anyone to be attacked. And the mob saw that video and then they came for me and called me a racist, Nazi, white supremacist, the whole thing. And I had thousands of emails. Everyone, all my friends, like knitter friends who weren't actual friends, denounced me and came after me just because the mob would actually threaten them, like send them messages and emails saying, if you don't denounce her, we're going to come after you. So everyone piled on, and yeah, that's kind of what happened.
Going from where you were at that moment to right now where all of your yarn is sold out except for one, I believe I checked this morning. So that's a pretty big shift in opinion,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing I've been learning. Probably like the biggest lesson I've learned is that if you actually like have the guts to do this and speak your mind and be honest and have integrity, there will be people on the other side that will just like rush to support you. Like I know, deplorable knitter, you've probably had the same thing happen. It's just like there's this whole other community on the other side that is actually sort of like an untapped market. And if you're brave enough to actually go out and, you know, speak your mind, these people will just love you because there's hardly anyone that has the courage to do it. So yeah. I'm hoping like eventually more people will have the courage, but right now it's really great because there's hardly anyone in the knitting community doing what we're doing. So
yeah, that's the thing. People are scared. I've said it a lot. I feel like I say it all the time, but people are really scared to like take a stand because the mob is so scary, as you know. They really want to like ruin people and wreck livelihood and all of that stuff. And it's not so bad. There are so many people who will support you. Like when everything happened with you, I know I was in a conservative knitting group, and like every single person in my group bought yarn from you because they were like, oh, we can't let this happen, and everybody went out and made a purchase. And then the ones who couldn't like get anything were like disappointed. They were like, oh, she was all sold out, I couldn't even get a skein. I'm like, well, I'm sure she'll do an update, but yeah.
Like I remember when the polarized knits kit came out with all the little mini skeins. Those were gone fast.
Oh yeah, that was super popular. I need to do more of those. They're just like a huge pain in the butt doing mini skeins. So
yeah, no, I know a lot of my followers are going to be happy to hear that, because I mentioned that we were going to be talking to you, and they were like, hey, what about her woke yarns? Are those going to be back? Like, I didn't get any the first time around. And
I know I need to do more. It's just, they're fun to do, all the little mini skein sets, but it takes like 3 times the amount of work to do the mini skeins than just regular skeins. So I'm not making as much money off of them. I make like a little bit, but the amount of time I put into twisting every single skein, labeling every skein, it's just, yeah. But they are fun, and they're really cute, like kind of collectible.
they are really cute. And I have a hat pattern in mind, which is part of why I want to get my hands on one, because I have a hat that uses like 5 different colors of yarn, and I can just see it in like all of these awesome colors that you've got, and I'm just dying to get some. So there's a market if you are wanting to do it still.
Yeah. I'll try to do something. I mean, we're coming up to the holidays, second half of the year, so maybe I'll do something like that.
Coming up to the holidays, I think with all the very openly politically correct stuff going on right now, this is going to be a kind of weird Christmas. I mean, after whatever happens in the election and riots and everything else through the summer, I think this is going to be, it's going to be a Little Women Christmas, but in a bad way. Like, a civil war outside your door. So
it's going to be crazy, especially, I mean, they're no longer saying if there's another lockdown. Like, mass media is just saying when. Like, they've already decided there's going to be another lockdown. So yeah, we're probably all going to be locked in our homes as well throughout Christmas.
Yeah. But how has it been there where you are with the...
I mean, it's been, I know it's been crazy. Like Seattle, they had a big riot, I think on Sunday. So I know that a lot of like Christian people and churches, I think, got together this last Sunday, and they gathered on Capitol Hill, which is where the Chaz Chop thing was. Right. And they had like mass like outdoor worship services, and I think they were having baptisms, and Portland did the same thing, which was really cool. And the media, of course, didn't cover any of that because they're not rioting or hurting businesses or killing or anything. I mean, just very peaceful. But then later that night in Seattle, there were like riots again, and lots of broken windows and businesses, and I think a police officer was shot or something. So it's still happening, but I never really go into Seattle anymore. We haven't been in the city itself like the entire year. I think the last time we were there was like January. So I go into town once a week to get groceries. If anyone lives on the West Coast, try to get out. That's my advice.
I think it applies to a lot of states, not just the West Coast.
Well, yeah. Right. West Coast, East Coast.
Yeah. If you're somewhere in the middle of the map, it's probably an okay spot.
Yeah.
better than some of the other ones, at least.
Yeah. But question more towards knitting and what happened to you specifically. So you have the first kind of wave where people are, saying all sorts of horrible things to you. You get all these bad emails. You took a social media break, all of that stuff. And then it was more sort of the turning of the tide in your favor, kind of the Winston Churchill quote where a lie is, you know, all the way around the world before truth has its pants on. That sort of finally people are catching up to your side of the story. And when do you kind of say that shift took place, that sort of?
I think it was October last year. So throughout the summer, like, I was feeling pretty depressed. I mean, we had our wedding, which was great, in July last year. And then after that, I just sort of like started to like go downhill. Like, I was the most depressed I've ever been, just because everything was just kind of hitting me. I had the excitement of planning the wedding and all that. So after that was over, like, I realized, oh my gosh, like, no one wants to collaborate with me anymore. Like, how am I going to grow my business? I had lost like 5,000 followers, I think, on Instagram. So I lost a huge chunk of people. Like, I was feeling really hopeless and also just fed up with everything. Like, I didn't know how to move forward. Like, if I should continue speaking out or if I should just try to go back to just being happy and trying to get back to that like utopian place that the knitting world was in. At least that's how I felt it was. Right. But it just, yeah, so I was struggling and I kind of wanted to quit my business, and I kind of almost did at the end of last summer. And then I heard about the YouTube channel Unsafe Space, and they had recorded a video talking about the knitting world, and I watched it and then got in touch with them, and they interviewed me. I think it was like the end of September, early October, I don't remember the dates, but that interview came out, and like, I just had so much support from them, and we started talking about it. And that was also the same week that Sockmatician released his video talking about his side of the story. So suddenly, like, we were actually getting our stories out and people were talking about it. And I realized I wasn't alone anymore. And that just gave me a lot of strength. And I just decided to keep going. And then in January, I released my Polarized Knits collection, which just totally like gave me so much like strength, and I just felt like really powerful again, that I was actually like making money off of what the bullies had done to me. It felt so good.
I heard a rumor that you named one of those colorways after a social justice warrior. Is there any truth to that or no?
No, that was a weird, like, one of the colors is called emotional labor.
Yeah.
And I was having a conversation with someone else, and they suggested, oh, why don't you spell it like ocean and make it a blue, like a bluish color? So I thought that was a cool idea. And then after I released the yarn, people were saying, oh my gosh, you named this after Ocean, who is one of the social justice warrior people. She was in like the original gang. And she's a yarn dyer in England, and she's Black. And I was like, oh crap. Like, it did not even cross my mind until after that. And I kind of tried to explain it a little bit when I came out with, like, in the comments, some people were saying that. And then I just, like, whatever, no. They can think that if they want. I'm not going to change the name of the color because that wasn't the intention. I don't think most people are even going to make that connection unless they want to. Like, most people don't even know who she is. So.
But yeah, when I heard that, I was, from what I knew of you, and I emailed you a long time ago, and you were so very kind and nice, and I was just thinking, there's no way that there's any truth to that. But, they latch onto these things. Like, when I put out the Build Wall hat, everybody was like, oh, you're a racist and you hate brown people. And I'm like, because I put something that our president said on a hat. What? Like, and I kind of assumed that that's what was happening with you, but I was just curious because from everything I've seen, I couldn't imagine that was true.
No, and I don't even, I mean, I feel very strongly that I don't want to use the same tactics they use. So I don't name people. I try to, like, I've had people email me asking me, like, who was it that came after you? And I have a really hard time even, like, revealing who these people were. And I've never once gone on any of their profiles and left comments. I've never mobbed them or tried to argue with them or contacted them in any way. So yeah, that ocean thing was unfortunate, but I haven't heard anything since then. I don't think people really, like.
Well, I think anybody who truly follows you knows what the case is, and so it didn't really gain as much momentum as it did, like, you know, when they went after you the first time around.
Yeah.
Most people already know.
Yeah, and if they'll go after you for, like, stupid little things, like claiming that I'm a Nazi because I said I like to drink Guinness, like
I didn't realize that's why you were a Nazi. I wish I had a reason like that for being a Nazi. No, mine is just because, you know, I repeated something the president said. Oh, well.
Yeah. Seriously, like, I don't care what connections they make anymore because they're going to take any little thing you say and make some sort of crazy connection. So it just doesn't matter.
Yep. And for my part, never heard of Ocean or anyone who's a yarn dyer, and it's like, I guess all the puns are taken. You know, like, I guess that's not allowed. You just,
yeah,
it's like trying to get a new blog name, and like every bad joke under the sun already has a blog, and it's
yeah. No, you can't use puns, you can't use metaphors, like going to India, you can't say it's like going to Mars, even though everyone knows that's not what Karen Templer meant. Like, yeah.
She didn't actually mean she thought it was Mars.
No, and that
just
they were
so
aliens.
Out of the question.
Folk are humorless. There's no jokes allowed.
Unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it sad? I didn't have Anne and her sarcasm. I don't know what I would do in my life. It'd be sad.
Yeah, I grew up with 3 older brothers, so there was a lot of sarcasm in our family.
Probably takes a lot for you to be, like, offended by something too, because you grew up around, like, I have an older brother, and he says all kinds of nonsense to me, and I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, it takes a lot.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it is sort of a, you know, like having people who can sit around and joke with you and, you know, tell you when you're wrong. It does take a lot of edges off of your personality. And that's, I think, problem is with a lot of social media, and now with having the lockdowns and everything else, where the less we are around people, the more sensitive we become.
Yeah.
And psychologically, I think that's a very bad place for people to be in.
Yeah, people are so sensitive. Like, if I were to live my life trying not to offend anyone, I might as well just kill myself, because there's someone in the world who's just offended that I exist, I'm sure. So
many, if they would read that.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, and it also makes me wonder, like, I don't know, are these people so unfulfilled in their personal life that they need to go and make other people feel bad? I mean, I've never given much thought to what, like, you don't have to agree with me. I don't know your politics. You might not agree with what I think about the president. I don't care, because we can get along as people, and the whole section of the world has just lost that, where if we're not in lockstep, we don't want you. And it's it's really discouraging, the whole thing.
It's really like cultish and religious. Like I have a friend here who recently, like she saw some things. She's not a knitter, but she saw some things that I had been posting online, and she like sent me a message like, "Oh my gosh, like you need to explain to me like why you think this way, and this isn't what Black people need to be hearing right now." And she's white.
Right. Who knows what Black people ought to be hearing right now?
Yeah. So, and like she wanted to like get together and talk with me, and then like every time I post something on like my Facebook, she's immediately on there like trying to refute me. And it's just like, why? I would never do that to someone. Like it wouldn't even cross my mind. If I disagree with them, I'm just gonna scroll on. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I not with that particular issue, but I had someone, I posted some meme about COVID. So it was like a long form response over under it about how, well, sometimes the scientists aren't always correct, but we should absolutely listen to them anyways. And we need a mask, goggles now. And this was only one day after Fauci said goggles and a face shield. And that we have to follow every rule and regulation to the line. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to be walking around like the Winter Soldier. And I hope with mind control too, because otherwise this is no fun anymore. But this is, like everything once one with both social justice ideology and with keeping in line with other things, that once you've agreed to one thing, you have to do the next thing. And then once you agree to that, you have to do the next thing after that. And there's no level of, oh, well, I agreed to this, but I won't to this. You're guilty of everything if you don't agree to the next thing there is.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, I was thinking about it, what Maria was saying about people and how, you're so wrong and you're hurting Black people or whatever by saying there's a fundamental difference between most conservatives and liberals, and it's that if you're speaking to a conservative person, generally they will give you the benefit of the doubt that you are a good person. We may not agree with your ideas. We may think you're a good person with bad ideas, but on the other side, they think you are a bad person for your ideas. So like, you don't think that Black Lives Matter is a good group or whatever, then you are a bad person. It's not that your ideas are bad, it's that you yourself are bad. And that's why I think they feel so empowered to go after people, because they, in their hearts, believe that they are really warriors and they're really, truly right, and that we are really, truly, really awful people. Mm-hmm. And that's why there's a big difference. And that's why you don't see there are conservatives that go out and do crazy things too. I'm not going to say they don't, but as a majority, you don't see this giant piling on of people. It tends to go the other way. And that's why, because they think we're bad people. We're irredeemable. So,
or they yeah. And they try to like convert you. Like, I feel like my friend, she's like trying to like constantly like get me saved. Like, have you accepted Jesus yet? Have you said this perfect little prayer? Like, it's the exact same thing. Like, and I'm a Christian, but I was always growing up like super annoyed with people and churches that would treat you that way. Like, are you really saved? Like, you need to read this special thing and say this special prayer. And it's,
That's not how you, with religion and conservatism, you have, when you try to convince people, you can't just beat them over the head with something. I mean, to a certain extent, facts are facts, but you can't. Yeah. There's a lot of bad persuasive techniques that we don't want to use. We want it to be the truth of what we say, not because I manipulated your emotions and then,
Yeah, I've guilted you and I've browbeat you until you just agreed with me because you can't stand it any longer. There's a difference.
And then you won't really believe anyways. You're just giving in because, you want them to shut up, which is.
And that's exactly what the mobs and the social justice warriors do. They beat you into it like so much. that,
And I think that that's why so many people who maybe agree with us are quiet, because God, after a while, I just don't want to hear it anymore. Like, you
yeah,
can only hear the same argument so many times, and you're like, oh my gosh, just leave me alone already. And I think that's why people don't talk. They're like over it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I know. So when all of this first happened to me, like when I did that original first Instagram post where I said I was leaving Instagram and that the community had become toxic, um, I got a lot of private messages from people on Instagram saying like, "Oh my gosh, we agree with you. This is crazy," from very, very popular people in the knitting community. They're the ones that came out the most like vehemently towards me. Like, yeah. So I think they knew that they had like I had evidence against them. So they had to like go full on like, oh my gosh, we're denouncing her. This is terrible. Even though behind the scenes they had been supporting me.
Right.
So
Yeah. I think a lot of people are just scared of losing their business.
yeah.
A lot of people just, I mean, it's their livelihood. It's why, even though they may not have agreed with the Ravelry thing that happened last year, or the issues that they're having this year with the accessibility, you know, people can't leave. It's their business. And it's a fine line. And you understand probably better than anyone how difficult it can be to come back from something. And it's just, the whole thing is just really unfortunate.
Yeah.
So,
It's tough. I hope that, I mean, I don't have kids, but I don't think I would have done anything different if I had kids and a family to support, just because we grew up super poor. We had nothing. Like, we had food stamps. I mean, I was trailer trash. Like, we were super poor. No offense to my parents. I love my parents. But like, so I know what it's like. And when you're a kid, you really don't need much. You just need parents that love you and encourage you. You don't need tons of money. Like, I I feel like the way I grew up actually helped me in a way, like because I was able to do things. I didn't have help. Like, I had to have just a lot of self motivation to go forward in my life. So I would hope that if I had had kids, this just would have been a lesson to teach them. Like, look what happened to me, your mom. Like, and I had courage and I spoke the truth and I survived and we got through this. So I think that would be a better example to them than giving in to a mob. Like, yeah, as a kid, I would have been really proud of my mom for what she did, like if it were me. So
Right. And I mean, my kids and I, we talk about it too. Like, we talk about, they're young, so finally they've just started asking me, why are you deplorable knitter? And so I had to explain to my kids why I use that name. And I don't know that they totally get it, but it's you know, I talk to them about how some people are really mean and how they don't support the president and they don't like me because I do. And but it's okay because I know that what I'm doing is right for us. And so it is a learning experience. It is hard having kids, because if you stand by what's right, I think things work out. So there is that. But
yeah.
and to share, you're talking about, if you had kids and, what you're, telling them about things. I remember when I was young, that I was a part of Girl Scouts. And I remember, it was not a very big group, but, my mom had read the money that goes from Girl Scout cookies, of course, goes to different liberal activist groups, different lesbian activist groups, to Planned Parenthood, to all these things. And she's like, this isn't right. And she sat down with the other mothers and said, why are we supporting this? Why are we sending our girls out to sell Girl Scout cookies? And that's where the money's going to. And it was a very intense moment for her, because the other women in the group were women who were higher up in the community than her. That having that moment of hey guys, what are we doing? What do we really believe here? And not letting that slide, that Girl Scout troop dissolved. It was back later, someone else started one, but for that moment, it was a, hey guys, what are we actually supporting? What are we doing here?
Mm-hmm.
There are many moments in life where you can have that sort of, that you can take a stand like that. You know?
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that's, I mean, and you were probably as a kid, like, that was probably a really great lesson for you, right?
It was, and not even something that I think I took to heart at the time. It was something that sort of hit me much more later.
Mm-hmm.
That it was something that we were active participants in because it was a small group. Everyone had to do their share in supporting it, and it was a no, we're not. We're turning around. We're not doing this anymore. So it was quite a moment.
Yeah. That's a good example. And I mean, I often think, because a lot of these, I mean, you see like the pictures of the moms with their kids, you know, with their leftist signs, their Black Lives Matter signs and things, and they feel like they're doing the same thing. They feel like they're being, you know, active, and they're being warriors in their community and teaching their kids, you know, to stand up to things. So, I mean, what do you guys think is the difference between, you know, what we do and what these people are doing? Like, I often think about that, because they're probably saying the exact same thing about us on the other side. Like, they're probably calling us, you know, some sort of social justice warrior. Like, we think we're doing the right thing, but they're doing the right thing. So what is the difference?
I know that it's cheap to use the Nazi analogy that everyone says you're a Nazi, you're a Nazi, you're a Nazi, both sides, flying around, all sorts of crazy stuff. But seriously, Hitler Youth, nothing different. It's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that white fragility follows the exact same path as white supremacy. It's all, your race is the most important thing about you. Everyone of the same race thinks the same, and your race is a key part of your inherent worth. Like, it's dreadful stuff, and it's very I believe it's Saul Alinsky in his Rules for Radicals. He said that you have to that you accuse the other person of exactly what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's much more insidious to do.
Yeah. Oh, it is. And I think that's kind of the main difference. Like, we don't cancel people. We don't like mob people. I mean, I know there are some that are saying we need to boycott certain businesses and stuff, but it's not the same. We're not trying to destroy people's businesses and their reputations. And I think that's kind of the main difference. I don't see conservatives going after businesses and individuals trying to completely destroy their lives. So it's like, do you want to be on the side of people destroying people's lives, or do you want to be on the side that actually sees nuance and lets everyone have their own opinions, and maybe doesn't associate with certain people, but doesn't mob them at the same time?
Right.
That is true. And I've had people ask me, well, like, oh, you say you don't buy from certain businesses. That's my prerogative. I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy from them, but personally, if you're telling me you're going to give 20% of my money that I gave you to Black Lives Matters, well, then that's a reason for me to not buy from you.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that other people can't, but you're right. It's more of a freedom situation as opposed to saying nobody should buy from them because they do that.
Yeah.
So I want to know, when it was going on, what did your fiance husband, like, did he agree with your ideas of speaking out and, you know, that kind of thing?
So the day that I actually decided to say something, he was working a night job, so he was actually gone for a couple days because he was up north of Seattle. So he was staying in a hotel. He wasn't even home. So I made this decision kind of without him. And he came home and I told him what happened and he was kind of shocked, like, why did you just do this to your business? Like, he was kind of shocked. I should have discussed it with him beforehand. But like very quickly he supported me, and like when the mob started going after me, I really was just trying, like I wanted to do some sort of damage control, and like I was trying to formulate like what can I do? Can I come out with some sort of statement saying I'm not a racist and a white supremacist and trying to explain myself? And he just kept saying no, like don't do it. You didn't do anything wrong. Do not come out with any apology or statement. And that was super helpful because this was like at the beginning of this whole situation in the knitting community. And I was completely unaware of the whole like cancel culture and the whole political world. So I didn't know that this was happening to other people. I thought it was just me. Like I didn't know what to do. So if it weren't for him, I probably would have come out with some sort of statement, which would have made things worse. Mm-hmm. He was super supportive, and like he was saying, you know, if your business fails, that's fine. Like I can support us. It's totally fine. He wasn't bitter or anything. He was so supportive. Like the first like week that the mob was really coming after me, it was miserable. I mean, I just had like a constant headache, feeling sick to my stomach, and he would just like hold me all night long. Like it was so nice. Before all of this happened, I seriously did not have any idea what was going on politically. Like I knew everyone hated Trump. I didn't really have an opinion either way. I thought it was kind of funny that people hated him so much, but I didn't really have an opinion. And then after all of this happened, it was like my mind was completely opened, and I started researching things and finding that this had been happening to a lot of people, and a lot of people were talking about culture and postmodernism and Marxism. And my husband really got into it as well. He read The Gulag Archipelago while this was happening, and he was like, oh my gosh, this is our world, like this is happening now. So I think it actually like strengthened our relationship in a lot of ways. And he's told me since then that he thinks I did the right thing. And if I hadn't spoken up and had gone along with this and apologized, he wouldn't have as much respect for me as he does. So, yeah.
Okay. So if you had advice to, the people who wrote you nice things, then turned on you, who you won't do Tusken Gate on, though that would be that'd be exciting. I'd be here for that. You know, someday you might have to. That'd be, not that I'm encouraging that sort of thing, but that would be quite interesting. But if one of those people came forward, that they're sitting there, they're thinking about, no, wait, I have to turn around and say something. I believe Blue Mouse Knits did a video of something like that. What would your advice be to them? What would you, if there's any specific course of action that you believe would be a good thing to do going forward if they were going to out themselves as a Maria Tusken fan?
Don't apologize ever to the mob when they ask for an apology. And I actually think if you can, just keep going about your business as usual. I know it's hard. Like I left social media. I wasn't on Instagram for 7 months, which was, I think, really great. But I kind of wish I just kept going. because the mob, like, they have like zero attention span. Like, they'll go after you for 2 weeks at the most. I think 2 weeks is like the average I've heard. And then after that, they just kind of ignore you, and they realize the more they go after you, the more positive attention you're going to get and the more customers you're going to get. So yeah, I think just like keep going about your business as usual. Don't apologize. And if make sure you have, supportive people around you. If you have a supportive spouse, I think that's really important. Yeah, just really just keep going. Don't apologize. It's so tough though. When you have like thousands of people going after you at once and you feel like everyone in the world hates you, I don't know. Like it's a really, really tough position to be in. And I don't know I mean, a lot of people emotionally just can't handle it. Like I know Sockmatician, he sort of had a mental breakdown. So yeah, it's so tough to give people advice because you don't know what it feels like until you have the mob come after you, and it's such a terrible feeling. Like you either have to be a super just strong person, or you have to almost be like narcissistic or psychopathic, where you don't care at all what anyone thinks about you. You kind of like the negative attention.
I try. I didn't get. I've gotten a lot of hate over the time, but it's never been piled on all at once. Like it comes in spurts and sputters and whatever. And I try to deal with it by finding the humor in it, because a lot of the stuff, like these people come in and they have a script, and it's like the bingo card joke. Like I probably have gotten a bingo all the ways around now because of all the things I've been called and told and whatever. And so I don't know. I kind of like almost try to have a little bit of a sense of humor about it when people are telling me how terrible I am, because you don't know me, and so go for it, whatever. But then again, if I didn't have people who supported me, I would probably feel differently. That does help, but I don't know. If somebody's going to come after a stranger on the internet, they must need something interesting in their life. So whatever. Find some humor.
I think that's good. I heard yesterday, I don't know if you guys watched Tim Pool on YouTube, but he was talking about how there was a lady a few days ago, or a guy a few days ago, who was attacked in Target because he was an employee and someone wasn't wearing a mask, and a customer complained to him, like, you need to force this person to wear a mask, and he didn't force the person to wear a mask. And so she, like, I think she took his picture and was like bashing him online, and then the mob went after this guy. And so someone else who something similar had happened to her a few years ago actually started a GoFundMe for this guy to raise money for like a vacation for him. And I think they raised like $22,000 or something. So Tim Pool was talking about how, like, what if we started some sort of like fund to help canceled people, so that that you have something to fall back on if you are canceled. But I mean, the only problem with that, which I think is a big problem, is people would exploit it. Like
in England, there's a man named Toby Young, and he set up a free speech union. That the point is to, once you're part of the union and you get canceled, that they will come and defend you, that they'll file legal notices, that they will, if there is a petition to get you fired from your job, that they will have a counter petition so that you stay, and different things like that. College campuses who have their own little debate clubs that have been canceled because, they're too crazy and conservative to then fight back against it. And it's a brilliant idea.
Interesting.
Free speech is constitutionally protected in America, where it really isn't in England. But still, to have that sort of thing, I think would be excellent.
I think that's a good idea, because that might cut back on the people trying to exploit it, because they actually have to be part of the union. So they're probably not going to join a union unless they actually like want to be a part of it. And I'm guessing, do they have like union dues or is it just like a club?
They do have union dues because I joined, but I don't get legal protection because I'm not English. I have the foreign one, but it's, I believe depending on the pound versus the dollar, for a foreign one, it's $60 a year, and they say they won't, they can't do legal, like I just said, but if there's an online campaign that they will notify members to then help you if you're harassed online. So Toby Young, Free Speech Union.
That's an interesting idea. I've heard of him and I've heard him speak. I just didn't realize that there was that component to it. That's cool.
Right.
If I had the time and the legal expertise or knew someone to form something like that here, even just within the knitting community, like being part of a free speech knitting union or something, that would be pretty cool.
If it would empower more people to like say what they think, because they wouldn't have as high of a risk involved with it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it would be labeled as far right, so a lot of people would be scared to join it because anything is going to be labeled far right. Like,
right.
Yeah. Well, damned if you do and damned if you don't. So, yeah. I have a question that's totally in left field, because you're dressed very lovely in 1940s and love your florals.
Thank you.
I've that you've you sew your own clothes and you've done historical costuming in the past, and I follow several historical costuming influencers of that type on YouTube and on Instagram, and they are the most vicious around. So
yeah,
you're not only a conservative knitter, but to a certain extent conservative historical costumer. So that's a entirely different field.
Yeah. It's so ironic to me that like people that are into historical costuming are also like super liberal. You would think if you were into like the old history that you would be more conservative. And
right.
there are some, but I'm sure you've seen the hashtag vintage style, not vintage values.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. As if vintage values are totally monolithic.
Yeah.
Everyone in the past had exactly the same values and they were bad.
And they were all bad. Yeah.
Every single person in the past was wrong. And we are also most oppressed now. They were so oppressed in the past. They didn't know they were oppressed, but I'm so glad that I could tell them now that they're not here that they were oppressed.
Yeah, I hate that because part of the reason I love the vintage style, part of that is because of the values. Not all of the values, of course, but a lot of them, like probably the majority of them. So I think a lot of people are into it because of like Hollywood and just like the fashion. So, and a lot of like Hollywood movies and miniseries and stuff, they're not historically accurate as far as like the ideology. I mean, they always have to bring in the like modern leftist.
Yeah, that, or I wonder also with having modern adaptations that even it seems the people who are complaining about modern adaptations being inaccurate while at the same time they have very liberal values. I think most of this or much of this comes from the education system, that you have these highly educated people, but they're still highly educated, that they may know a lot of historical facts, but the very leftist mentality is pushed so strongly in schools that even knowing the history, you're still seeing the history through a very thick lens of an ideological lens, I think.
Oh yeah. there's a lot of things. I don't know if you've seen the newest Anne of Green Gables, the Canadian adaptation of
I
Anne.
skipped it. I saw a little bit and I'm like, no.
It is so bad. The first season it was better, but it just went completely off script, like so social justicey. But there's also little things like Laura Ingalls Wilder. They went after her and the Little House on the Prairie books because when she wrote the book, she originally said there was like a sentence where she was talking about moving to the West and how the land was empty apart from the Indians, like as if Indians weren't people. And I think she actually changed that at the time, like she apologized and changed it in the books. But to me, like changing that, it's actually sort of because that's how the people felt. Perhaps, maybe that's not the right way to think, but that's how people actually felt. Like they felt that the Native Americans were like so completely different. And I mean, their culture was very different. And they felt like they were the only normal people at the time. So actually removing that, you're removing like the mindset. And we know reading that of course the Indians are people, and she knew that, I'm sure, when she wrote it, but she was trying to convey the mindset of the people. So you're putting the modern values into these things, and you're actually changing the history and the way people thought, which I think is fascinating, and it's important to preserve those things, even if they were wrong. Like we know now, but it's
And to be able to look at someone whose thinking is so completely different from your own, I feel that there's place culture and then there's time culture, where you have different people use this phrase in this time period in this way, but later that phrase would have been used in a different way, things like that. But also to look at different times and being that, different people in this way thought like this, and trying to understand that kind of allows you to shake your mind a little bit free of your own time period. So you can, now that you can see how they think, you can look back at what you think and see how that measures up. And to remove that, I think, removes a very important part of critical thinking about our own era, I believe.
Right. It removes that whole period of growth and change. And I like a lot of the whole like tearing down statues and erasing history and changing the meaning of words and getting rid of all this history. So they want to do this, but at the same time, they want reparations.
Right.
But if we, and they keep wanting to beat this drum of oppression, but if they erase all of that history, will they, like, what are they getting reparations for if we don't even know what this history was, what they have overcome? Like,
Right. That you have the idea with we need reparations for the past, but the only thing that you can know about the past is this tiny sliver, in that people are oppressed. That's not a small thing, but you need the broader context of the world. And because you don't see that broader context of the past, you can't perhaps see the broader context of what's happening right now, where we brought it up before, that modern slavery is a huge issue, and people sort of not seeing the difference between people in the past who lived with slavery and people who now live with slavery, but they're bad and we're okay, we guess. That you need to bring those two together in order to have a broader context for things even today.
Yeah, totally.
Anyways, like I said, totally in left field.
No, I enjoy talking about that.
Not as literary or whatever, but lately people have been coming after Friends, the show from the 90s, because there were no Black people in it. And actually Lisa Kudrow, who is super liberal, she actually said you have to look at it for what it was. It's a time capsule, and back in the 90s it was super progressive. Like, they had a lesbian couple, even though they were divorced, they still were co-parenting the kids, and they were like, oh, but Joey was such a misogynist. Well, in the 90s that was kind of funnier. Like that was an okay thing for him to be doing. So she was saying you can't go back and look at these things, because it, like you guys were saying, it shapes how we look at things currently. Like, you have to kind of have an understanding. Things haven't always been so PC. They haven't always been so, and it's okay to appreciate that and see it in yeah.
No, my husband and I love Friends. We watched it, I think, it was last year, because it was on Netflix last year. I think we watched it like all the way through like 4 times or something. So, we were constantly talking about how if they had Friends nowadays, it would be totally different. Like, so,
they were like, oh, well, there should have been like a Black person in the cast or this or that. Well, okay, so they missed the mark on that, but in the scheme of things, they addressed a lot of other issues in the course of the taping. So, you got to kind of take things for what they are.
Yeah.
Do you have any lovely new things coming to your shop?
Right now we are so busy. Like, we have home renovations going on just like nonstop right now. So I'm trying to do a shop update every week. I have one this Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And I'm doing the colors from the My Favorite Things Yarn Club, which was inspired by The Sound of Music. So I'm doing more of that in various bases. That's kind of what I have going on. No more custom orders for the minute, because my supplier has been affected by the whole COVID thing and getting shipments in. So I'm not really able to do custom orders because I don't know what's going to be in stock. So that's just kind of what we're doing moving forward. It was really great talking to you guys.
Yeah, you too. We were so thrilled to have you on, and I know some of our viewers were pretty excited too. So
nice.
Kind of.
Let's be honest here. We were pretty thrilled when you commented on our first video. We were like calling each other over that one. So
maybe a little bit. We did fangirl a little bit, so that was fun.
That's hilarious. It's so weird because like I'm just a regular person, but the whole online thing, it's like you become sort of like a little celebrity, even though you're just a regular person. I mean, it's cool.
Yeah. Well, I think Anne and I admire you because you didn't cave to the mob and you came back better than ever. And so it's encouraging, because even when we decided to do this, we had long discussions about like, hey, Anne, I'm used to people calling me all kinds of names. How will you feel about it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and so you're a example for that kind of situation.
Well, to a certain extent, I don't know. This is incredibly naive, and I understand that it is, but it's kind of, for me, it's like there's a fight going on, and I'm kind of ashamed that I'm not in it. So that may be kind of a silly schoolboy going off to war thoughts, but for me, I'm like, no, I'm not anybody, and I may never be anybody, but at least I want to say, hey, there was something going on, and I said something.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think it's important, and I get that same feeling. That's why I've kept going, and I'm still doing the woke yarn and all that. yeah, I think there is a battle going on. I do think we're in some sort of war right now. It just looks different. So I think pretty soon we're not really going to have a choice. We're going to have to take sides, unfortunately, no matter who you are or where you are. So yeah. Oh, I do have another a few exciting things. So I was interviewed last week on a podcast called Canceled, and that went really well. They were super nice.
Oh, excellent.
So what?
Just excellent.
Yeah. So that's probably coming out in a week or two, I'm guessing. And then also about a month ago, I was interviewed by CBS, like the national television network. A guy from CBS flew out to my house and filmed me and interviewed me at my house. So that didn't go as well. I felt really uncomfortable and cornered. So the main guy interviewing me was really nice, but he brought with someone else who I didn't know was going to be there, and she just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So yeah, I felt like really uncomfortable and tongue-tied the whole time. So I have a feeling they're probably going to paint me as an ignorant white lady from the country. So yeah, that should be coming out in like a week or two, I think. And they're doing a documentary series on political correctness, and the first episode is on cancel culture. So they interviewed me and Brett Weinstein and a few other people. So I'm sure my section will only be like a couple minutes, but that's exciting that I will be on national television.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
Yeah. That because it's on national television, like I'm seriously like worried about getting hate mail and stuff. So
Well, like you said, they have a short attention span.
they do.
So, you might get it for a couple of weeks and then they'll find something else to move on to.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
On the other hand, I'm sure it will bring in lots of new people to see your yarn. So
hopefully. Yeah, I would love to find like a local supplier, like someone in the US. I did have a supplier in Virginia or North Carolina, one of those states. I don't know the East Coast that well. But they didn't want to work with me unless I donated money to like a Black knitter group. This was back in February of 2019. So I broke ties with them.
you're like, wow, that sounds pretty racist.
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So many crazy things happened.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you can find somebody who agrees with, not bowing to the mob, who can supply you in the US. That would be excellent. If anybody watching knows of anyone, drop a comment, let us know.
Yeah. It would be great to have some local yarn, because I think so many mills have shut down just because the production has gone overseas. So yeah, there's a lot of sheep and a lot of great land for raising sheep in this area. So
well, thank you for joining us today. We were very excited, and Anne and I have more interesting guests up our sleeves, so make sure you like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on all of the fabulousness we have planned. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. It was great.